We are live. What's going on, everybody? How's it going? All right, awesome. So, welcome to the live stream here. This is our next Rube Goldberg live stream where we're going to walk you through lessons 3 and 4. Lessons 3 and 4. +1. Haha. So we are Ian's here with us today. Thankfully, is going to guide us through all those steps. So let me do some quick introductions. My name is Brian Dickman, president of Clever Lake Studios. We exist to capture that excitement that kids have towards video games, and we sneak in the vegetables. So we create learning experiences inside of popular video games, so that kids could really get a lot of value out of the motivation and excitement they have. Video games that wouldn't be possible without super talented creators like Ian Southwell. Ian.
Oh, I almost started talking and didn't unmute myself. It was almost official. I'm so good at that.
Wow. We're reading the lips focused.
Right. So hello, everybody. I'm Ian Southwell, creative director here at Clever Lake Studios. Been a really, really awesome opportunity to work on this project because I get to play and build. I get to play and create, and I just get to play in general. That's just kind of what I do, play something that you do every day, and it's just so much fun to do it. So I will be walking you through 3 and 4. I'm going to do it this way and this way, so see if you can figure that one out. Yeah. And this actually wouldn't be possible if it wasn't for Jennifer George, because it's just, well, I'll let you explain.
Jennifer George.
So we're going to go diagonal.
That way.
Yeah, that's right.
We're not doing the Brady Bunch thing. So, hi, everybody. I'm Jennifer George. I am the director of the Rube Goldberg Institute. Rube happened to be my grandfather, so this whole thing was an accident of birth, but I am so lucky to be here because I get to work with guys like these who know so much more than I do, thankfully. So, but I can talk about Rube Goldberg machines. That I'm good at. But I'm going to pass it over to Steve that way.
Whoa. Pick it up, Steve.
I'll pick it up. Hey, everybody. My name is Steve Isaacs. I'm the education program manager at Epic Games. I have had the good fortune of working with Brian and Ian on projects like the Rube Goldberg Learning Kit, and over the last few years have had the wonderful fortune of meeting Jennifer, and that all started when I was in the classroom and I was having my students create Rube Goldberg machines, and I would tag Rube Goldberg in my tweets and such, and then we connected and started doing some neat projects together. So that's been just an absolute joy, certainly on a personal level. And what I want to do is take just a moment, if I could, to kind of talk about, this learning kit and the competition to guide, folks along in terms of what we'll be doing. And actually, now that you show that, Brian, you know what I'm going to do first?
What are you going to do?
I'm going to show this cool
What is a
video
Rube
that
Goldberg
Jennifer
machine?
shared. This is going to show a little bit about that.
This is
boy.
Is how most people experience Rube Goldberg these days. Viral videos.
Wow.
There is music.
But do you not hear it?
We can't hear it.
Oh, you know what? Can I change that? Because I want them to hear it.
Yeah, it's kind of fun.
Let me try to let me unshare and reshare.
Well, the cool thing about this video, and this video lives on our website, rubegoldberg.org, in the basically Who's Building Rube area. And if you go to the bottom there, you'll see the brand sizzle. And this is an overview of how big brands today will use Rube Goldberg machines to message what they do. And you'll see how, thematically, when we talk about how do you put theme into a Rube Goldberg machine, whether it's animated, live, drawn, this is a great example. So if you're showing your kids in a classroom, really look at our resources on our website. There's so much that you can add to your classroom experience.
Let's try this again. I followed the directions better this time, I think. Ready? Let me know how we go. We wanted to see this part again anyway, I think.
Yep, we can hear it, I think. Nice use of Post-its.
I think I saw a bowling ball.
You can hear my voice in your head, and you wanna hear it again.
Nice.
That is cool.
It is.
That
cool.
is really cool. Yeah.
And I'll tell you, any one of those videos, again, to bring into the classroom to inspire your kids, you can find all of them on YouTube, and let your kids see how cool and how imaginative they can be with their machines.
Definitely. Yeah, so we're gonna have Steve. Like, how do you get involved in this? This is an Unreal Engine Rube Goldberg 10-pin challenge. So you have to build a Rube Goldberg machine in Unreal Engine to knock down 10 pins any way you deem necessary, possible, creatively, and submit that in the month of November. You have plenty of time. We're gonna guide you through every step of the way. That's what this live stream is about, to show you lessons 3
That's right.
and 4.
3 and 4 today. I think I'm showing the competition page now.
Yeah, tell us
so
about
the
it.
Rube,
How do we get
the Rube
involved?
Goldberg. Yeah, how do you get involved? That's a good question. So we have this wonderful landing page on the rubegoldberg.org site. In fact, why don't I show you even a step back, show you how to find it real easily. So if you go to rubegoldberg.org, got a nice little banner up there, and then you go to Rube Goldberg contests, and then one of the contests that's featured is the Rube Goldberg Unreal Engine 10-pin challenge. Now, the competition, we're trying to keep this nice and simple. We've got our rule book and our big register now button. So you can head over and register your team. Registering just gets you set up for the competition. Just to let everybody know, we have started going over the competition, but submissions aren't even accepted until November 1st. So you have plenty of time to get oriented, to go through the lessons, to get ready, and to start building your machines. We'll be accepting submissions from November 1st through the 30th, and then do our judging and have the award show on the 6th. And one thing also very worth noting is each week after the live stream, we are posting the recordings here on the main competition page, trying to keep it really easy to find. And of course, we're very grateful to NASEF and Clever Lake, who we have here today, for all of their great support to make this competition happen. So that's that page. What I also want to then show you is, in terms of the learning, and I'll drop this in the chat, but the Rube Goldberg learning kit is something that Brian and Ian and their team created probably took about a year to create. A lot of awesome hard work, a lot of beautiful assets that were created to bring this to life, and a number of lessons. And each lesson has a series of things that I just want to kind of point out real quick. They all have a student guide. The student guide actually guides students step by step through the entire process of one of the lessons. I guess today I could have shown lesson 3. It would have showed what we're going to be doing today. But the format is real simple. Kids can basically go through this. You would have already downloaded the Rube Goldberg Learning Kit. They could get right in there and get started. And each lesson has, an opportunity to solve little puzzles that kind of contribute to building a Rube Goldberg machine with all built-in assets that we've made very accessible. So in essence, you don't have to know too much about Unreal Engine to get started. You really start out working just with navigating and moving widgets and gizmos and that sort of thing. And then the nice thing also is each of these lessons has a series of chunked videos that show step by step in small bite-sized lessons how to go through and create everything that you're supposed to create. So basically 6 lessons, culminating activities, building your full Rube Goldberg machine, and then submitting it to our awesome contest. And that's all you really need to know at this point, I do believe. And
One thing we might want to just tell everyone, when you register for your team or your person, you will be receiving a register, like a confirmation that you've registered, but we haven't set that part up yet. So don't be upset if you haven't gotten it yet. You will get it. We're just setting that up. They will go out next week.
And we are very excited that just since we've started, we have over 50 teams registered. So yeah, keep the registrations coming in. That'll also help you get more information. And we can't wait till November 1st when the submissions start flowing. So thanks. And with that,
we're
I think
seeing
we should hand
on the socials, we're seeing people already working with students. You know, if you look at
Anthony
online
White,
and social media,
all the way
they're
out there in
working.
Alaska. He's been working on it. Scott Beitner, I know, in New York. Kay Wojnowski, she's done a lot, and she even has shared hers with us. Maybe one of these days we'll show one of their student projects.
And we got an inquiry from Mumbai the other day, so we're wrapping ourselves around the world.
Beautiful.
Mhm. Everyone can learn and have some fun.
What's
So,
one language?
Speaking of learning, our resident expert Unreal Engine teacher.
Oh, that might be a thing. Yeah. So
That
let's
might be
go
you.
ahead. Are we good? We're good. Okay, here we go.
Boom.
Now that I have all of your attention, all the way in. Let's do it this way. All right. So we're gonna go ahead and roll through 3 and 4, as Steve had mentioned. The little bite-sized pieces are really nice, but I'm gonna go ahead and hit the meat of lesson 3 inside of this. So this PDF is quite literally what I'm going to be rocking through. So if you feel the need to actually walk through it at the same time, go right ahead and we will hit up 4 afterwards. The main thing behind these is really just kind of getting used to the interface and what's all here, because we want you to be able to use the engine to its fullest. So I'm currently using Unreal Engine 4. This will not work in Unreal Engine 5. I'm already starting to get some questions from people. Sorry, I'm in 5. It won't work in 4.
I'm like, wait a second.
Dyslexia. Yeah, like 5 out of 4 people have it, apparently. I'm one of them. So what I want to make sure is that everybody understands how to kind of get from place to place really quick, and then we're going to go ahead and jump in. Okay? So first and foremost, if you can right click inside of the area, you'll actually just kind of move the camera around, right? And what I would love for you to do is just kind of take a moment and quite literally look at this sandbox that we're in. What? It's a sandbox. That's incredible, right? So I'm just right mouse clicking in here, right? And to go straight up and down, while I'm holding down the right mouse button, I'm just pressing E as in echo, and I'll take us straight up. I can use the Q key to go straight down. I'll go right back where I came from. And then using W, A, S, and D, I can actually just kind of scoot left and right and go forwards and backwards. So if you're used to some video games, this is probably going to feel really familiar. And don't be afraid. You can actually use a controller, a little generic controller here. And you can actually navigate inside of this space using the controller too, which is really cool. So the shoulder buttons will make you go up and down. So yeah, really helpful. So you can get from spot to spot. But the real question is, how do I get back to where I started from? Because I'm probably looking somewhere over here at this beautiful artwork and I want to start all over. Well, that's actually really easy to do as well. And every one of the lessons talks about doing this. So when you have control over the camera, okay, this means that that the viewport is actually active. And this is the viewport right here, this whole area. So when that's active, if you press one of the numbers at the top of the keyboard, in this case, I'm going to press the 1 key as in Uno, it'll actually just snap me to where I need to be, which is really helpful. Okay, so navigating is a big part of this. And then actually manipulating stuff afterwards is going to be the second part of this. But we need something to manipulate. So in this case, we want to go ahead and bring up all the stuff for lesson 3, which is dealing with all the wedges and the watermelons. So to do that, we want to go up inside of the menu, and we're going to go up here to where it says window. Instead of window, I'm going to open this up, and I'm looking for this levels section right here. And this is just a little window that'll pop up. It's under Windows. There's a reason it's called that, right? So I'll click on that, and you'll probably get a pop-up. Mine actually is docked over here on the right-hand side, and it'll have a list of all of the different things that we're going to be playing with. And in this case, we're actually going to be playing with the wedge. Now, what we want to do when we get over here is to go ahead and right-click on this. And I'm going to come down here to where it says Change Streaming Method, and I want to set it to Always Loaded. Now, the reason that we want to do this is that when we go to play the game or simulate it, it will actually stay on screen. Okay, so I'll go ahead and just do that right now. And we'll probably get a little warning that says, hey, by the way, it must be visible to be saved. And that's fine. Just hit the OK button. This one right here. You'll be OK with it. So it'll actually make it visible for us. This little eyeball has actually turned on. And now we can go ahead and play with this. So as mentioned before, the numbers at the top of the keyboard will allow us to get our camera into the correct location. So for you and your students, if there's having a hard time getting from place to place, just click somewhere inside of the viewport and wiggle it around and make sure it works. And then if you press the 3 key, as in tres, this will allow you to actually move right here. And hey, we're right where we need to be. And in this case, we're just going to go ahead and play the game or simulate it up here in the top left-hand corner. Now, I did get a couple of messages like, this icon doesn't look like this. Like it looks a little bit different. I'll go ahead and zoom in on it so you can see it, right? It doesn't look like this. It looks like something different. If it does look a little bit different, don't panic. You're okay. Click right here. What we want to make sure is this selected viewport is toggled on. You probably have something that looks like simulate is usually the thing that happens most often because somebody hit Alt S because they were trying to save and supposed to Control S. So just so you know where that's at. So let's go ahead and zoom out. And now I'm going to go ahead and click on this button. And what we're watching is that watermelon and what it's going to do. So when we hit it, hey, the watermelon drops. Yay, physics. So this kind of sets the stage for what we're going to be doing pretty much for the rest of this. We're going to be dropping watermelons, right? So for all of you Gallagher fans out there, this should totally appease you for the next till he comes back around and does another show, right? So with this one selected, we can always move these things around. And if you're really feeling like you want to give it a shot, you know, make sure that you have this gizmo selected to move something around, a little crosshair one, right? So you can actually move this. And I'm just clicking and dragging on this little arrow. And this allows you to move objects around in the world. And if we can, we might be able to get it right above it. Maybe we get a hoop. That was pretty close. Wasn't perfect. Let's go and just set it back where it was. Now, what we want to play with, because we're in a Rube Goldberg machine, is this down here. This is a wedge. And this wedge has superpowers. So if we select it, right, we can move it left and right, right? And what we want to do is we want to get it so it's directly underneath here. And then we're going to add a little bit of chaos factor. So this is where we take a guess. And we say, okay, well, is this watermelon going to fall down through here and go to screen left or screen right? Any guesses? Any guesses out there? Okay.
Ooh, I pick the right.
Oh,
hey. Oh, insider information. Woo.
I'll tell you what. I'll give you the money.
I'm in line with that cheddar.
Give me a lotto ticket, right? So this is kind of fun because it gives you a chance to kind of be like, oh, what's it going to do? What's going to happen, right? Like I can keep scooting this thing over. Now, the reason that I'm going to keep doing this, look at this. Like it looks, I would think that would actually go to the left, right? Let's try to get, I'm not moving anything. I'm give it another shot. It still does it. So what I want to kind of bring up at this point is that the engine uses what's called the chaos physics engine. And we don't really know what it's going to do. There's a little bit of play and what's actually happening, right? So you can continue to experiment over and over and over and over, and it may do the exact same thing. It may be deterministic, or it may not. You may not be able to determine what it's going to do, right? So if I scoot this over just a little bit more, now maybe I get to go to the left. Hey, there we go. All right, cool. So keep that in mind whenever you're working with any of these Rube Goldberg pieces inside of the engine, because it's a little bit of chaos, right? It's supposed to be there. So to add to the chaos, you may or may not have noticed this little thing right here, right? It's a little widget. Now, these widgets are pretty cool because they allow us to actually use the superpowers of some of these simple machines. In this case, if I click on this, right, and I start to move it around, you'll notice that I can actually change the proportions of our wedge. Like, that's kind of interesting, right? But the question is, why would I do that? That seems like a silly thing. Well, the answer is because this cheese right here, it isn't sharp enough, right? We need to make it some sharp cheddar. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to push this together. Now, before I actually hit the play button, I want to point something out, and it's over here on the far right-hand side, inside of the details panel. With this selected, what I'm looking for is this little sharpness right here. Now I'm going to go ahead and zoom in on this, right? And you'll notice that this value right now is at about 0.9. We'll call it 0.9. We'll round down. And if as long as it's over 0.8, so if I hover over this, right? If it's at 1, it's going to be really sharp. If it's at 0, it's going to be not sharp. It's going to be dull, right? So as long as this is over 0.8, I can actually cut the watermelon. Okay, so let's go ahead and hit play and see how that works. Ooh, that's interesting, right?
We love that.
That's
Love that.
fun. So this is really silly. So one of the things that I find really entertaining about this is that it will cut it like right where it hits it. Look at that tiny little slice, right? So you can play this over and over and over to kind of get a different effect. Ooh, almost got it right in the middle.
Oh, nice. Yeah.
So
Who gets the bigger part? That's what I want to know.
If we look at this, if we go in and close and look at this, right? Oh, there's actually watermelon seeds in there. How cool is that? So we got a different material on the inside and the outside. Like, how fun. All right. So
Cool.
now the reason that I moved the camera in here was to make a point. You'll notice that when you play the game or simulate it, and then you jump back out into what we're going to call editor mode, the camera's left right where it was. So to reset it, I'm going to just press the 3 key on the keyboard, and hey, we're back to where we were. Okay, so we can obviously make a mess. That's cool. So what I want to go ahead and do is clean up this mess. And we're going to use some buckets to catch all these watermelon pieces that are actually falling down off of our little wedge here. So to do that, we have to open up the content drawer down here in the bottom left-hand corner. This is where all of the assets are going to live. These are all the pieces that you can use to build all of your Rube Goldberg machines. And there are a bunch of them. Our modeler did an amazing job. I very much appreciate all the work that he put into this. So pay him some respects and show off what you can do with the cool things that he's created. So what we're going to do is we're going to kind of dial down inside of this to get the buckets that we need. And we can actually use the search feature as well. So this is what we need to do. While we're inside of here, I am up in the content. I'm going to come down here to static meshes, right? In static meshes, I'm going to go down into the food. Oh, but wait, there's more. And I can actually go all the way down into the watermelon, and we can find those watermelons if you ever want to add more, but we'll talk about that here in a minute, right? The other thing that we can do underneath our static meshes is let's go ahead and use that search feature I was talking about. So if we type in bucket, you can find this S toy bucket. So I'm going to zoom in on this so you can see exactly what I'm talking about. So that S actually stands for static mesh. So it's something that we can just kind of place in the world, and it doesn't really move around because it's not animated. It's static, right? So let's go ahead and add in a couple of these. So I'm going to click and drag this in, and you'll notice that that little bar will actually disappear at the bottom, which is great because now I can go ahead and just put this anywhere I want. Now, the other thing that's really cool about this, for those that are taking notes, is I haven't let go of it yet. I'm still holding on to it. And if I hover over a surface, you'll notice that it'll snap to that surface or to the wall, or in this case, the refrigerator. That's a heck of a refrigerator magnet. That's weird, right? So what I want to do is I want to put this right here, and it's okay if it actually just kind of sticks through that cheddar a little bit, but don't get crazy with it, right? So there's that one. So now when we play this, it should catch one of those pieces. Perfect. No, that's only half the mess cleaned up. If there's anything that my parents taught me is that I clean up my entire mess because they're not going to do it for me. So I want to go ahead and duplicate this. There's a bunch of ways to do this, but a little pro tip from everybody that works in the Unreal Engine, you can actually duplicate this without having to go grab another one from out of here. And I don't have to use any like hotkeys up here where I can say, hey, come up here and duplicate, right? What we can do is I'm going to hold down the Alt key on the keyboard, and I'm going to hover over this part of the move gizmo right here. This is the red arrow, right? I'm going to hover over it. Now I'm going to click and drag. I'm still holding Alt, and I can actually pull another one out. Hey, now we got 2 of them in here. So that's handy, right? So we can move objects very easily by using this gizmo, right? We can duplicate them by also holding down Alt and technically moving them, right? So it's going to add in another one. Now, one of the things that you may find is that you're trying to get the camera, to move around an object that you're playing with, like this guy right here. And if you select one of these, just left mouse click on them and press the F key as in frame, the camera will actually kind of zoom down to it, which makes it real easy to actually see if this thing is aligned to the rest of the world. Now, as another little pro tip, for those that are still taking notes, right? I want to be able to orbit around this. Now, what does that actually mean? Well, if I hold down Alt and I avoid this, right? I don't want to click on this, right? I'm going to hold down Alt. I'm going to left mouse click and drag. After I've framed it, I can actually orbit around it, and I can see whether or not this is like floating off the ground. Like I'd be able to tell, whoa, hold on a second. I'd be able to tell if that was floating, right? Because I can orbit around it. Let's go ahead and undo that. And I can see if it's lined up, forwards or backwards. This is one of those skills that when working inside of any 3D program is incredibly helpful, right? So if you're thinking about going into, I don't know, 3D printing, or you're thinking about actually going into video games, or you're thinking about working in something like architecture, any of those kinds of applications that uses 3D, it's incredibly important to be able to kind of orbit around an object and check things out. Okay, so let's go ahead and reset the camera.
You orbit with Alt and left click?
Correct. Yeah. So Alt and left click. Just don't click on the gizmo when you're doing
click on the object. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Otherwise it gets problematic. Okay. Make sure my camera will stay here. Perfect. Okay. So now when we play this, we should be able to get that watermelon to fall down onto our piece of cheese here and then fall into each one of those. Boom. Look at that.
Wow.
It's so
nice.
satisfying.
That is so cool.
And for those of you that have speakers, I'm going to go ahead and turn the audio on because I want you to be able to hear this, because it just even makes it that much more satisfying, right? So hopefully it's no louder than my voice, but go ahead and listen to what happens when that watermelon hits that slice. Oh, it's so good. Oh, now that's entertaining. Chaos Engine at work, hardcore, right?
And the best part, you don't have to clean up the real mess.
Right? You just hit stop. And I am hitting the escape key. Oh, look at that. It fell over. I'm hitting the escape key to actually get this to stop. So there we go. That's how you do it. Up. One more time, because it's so good. Oh, that was entertaining too. I do appreciate whenever we do these streams that my computing power is being taken up by a whole bunch of pieces, like the engine, as well as my webcam and my microphone and everything. So depending on the computing power of the computer you're working with, you may get little errors like that, it's all part of the fun, right? You can actually do some really silly things with it. Okay, so before we move on, one of the things that I want to definitely point out is that you should be enjoying doing this, right? Push this engine to its limits if you possibly can. And just like we duplicated these guys down here, we can duplicate these ones. What?
We met that guy this week. He had watermelons everywhere.
Which means there's going to be watermelon pieces all over the place, right?
Yeah, we know those students.
Yeah. So to talk about what we just talked about and do it again, because the repetition thing is going to be really helpful, I'm going to hold down the Alt key. I'm going to left mouse click and drag. And in this case, I'm actually going to grab the blue one and I'm just going to pull one straight up, right? Well, let's go ahead and grab both of these. So if you select one, Control on the keyboard and click on another one, you can add it to the selection. If you click on it while holding Control and it is selected, it'll take it out. So it's basically a toggle. You can add it and take it off. I'm going to hold Alt again. I'm going to go ahead and just pull out a couple more, because why not? And let's see if all of these will actually go down through here. Now, this is actually part of the lesson, so definitely play with this because it's super fun to see what happens. So let's go ahead and give it a shot. And you will notice that sometimes they get caught in there, right? So they don't always make it all the way through. Remember, we're working with the Chaos Engine here, so something silly may just happen. And honestly, I hope that it does. So what can we do about that? Well, with this middle one selected, I'm going to go ahead and press the F key so I can frame in on it. I'm going to hold down Alt, and I'm going to left mouse click and drag. And if I get the camera up above it, right, I can actually grab a couple of these and I can push them around. This comes back to what we were just talking about on actually checking everything out from a different angle. Right? You want to make sure that you're looking at all of the pieces that you're working with to see how they're actually lined up. Again, this is a skill that is transferable to all kinds of industries if they're working in 3D. And even if they're not, I'll press 3 on the keyboard. Let's see if we can get all these ones to now go through there, right? Oh, that was even more. So push them down.
Just when you think you had a good idea.
Right.
That's the beauty of iteration.
There we go. All right, let's do this. We're going to push these ones way up. I don't want to go too hard because I don't want to take them outside of the
you can break
kitchen that we're playing with in here, right? Let's back this camera
up. Something, wouldn't you?
Right. I'm using the mouse wheel to actually scroll backwards a little bit to get out of there. Oh, it's pretty good.
Yeah.
We had two left in there.
Oh, I thought they made it so realistic though.
Oh, right. That's good times. I'm actually caught on the collision in the wall here too. I'm stuck. I'm stuck. All right, let's press 3 and go back in there. So this is a lot of what you could play with in this one to actually get your watermelons up and running. Now, every one of these specific lessons has a cool little piece that talks about something that you can do inside of the engine. So let's actually go play with that now. But I do need to get rid of all of this stuff first. And lucky for us, it actually saved everything that I had just done inside of this little level that we had turned on earlier. So we can quite literally just turn it off, reversing what we had done to turn it on. So I'll go ahead and zoom in on it so you can see what we're doing. Let's move on over. And I want to right click on it, come down here to change streaming method. And this time I want to choose blueprint. And what this is going to do is it's going to say, oh, you have to run some kind of blueprint code to actually have it show up instead of just having it show up by default. So go ahead and click on that. And you'll notice that now we have a little blue dot right here that says, hey, it requires a blueprint to actually turn this on. And I also want to go ahead and turn the visibility off as well, because I don't want to see it while I'm actually trying to create some kind of really cool watermelon that shatters. I'm going to zoom back out. So, hey, we have a nice clean area to play with. Now, I'm not going to go into detail on this one just to save us time and actually talk about what we want to talk about next, which is lesson 4. However, I do want to show you what you can create if you follow along inside the lessons. And it is another watermelon, but this time we dunked it in liquid nitrogen. So let's go into our content drawer. And inside of here, we're going to go inside of our, where's it at? It's a food.
Liquid nitrogen, you say?
The liquid nitrogen.
What would that do? What? Who out there is going to shout out a guess as to what that could do?
Do we know what that does? Using those big sciencey words.
Do not try this at home unless you're on the Unreal Engine.
Now, you may have noticed that there's nothing showing up down here under food, and it did earlier. And you're like, well, what happened? This is another one of those little caveats that lives inside of the engine. Remember when you add something to your filters, because if you forget, we want to go ahead and clear it out. And I can do that just by clicking on this little X button right here to clear the filter. So say goodbye. Poof, now it's gone away. Hey, now we have our watermelon over here. Let's go ahead and grab this one. Now we have one of these already built into the engine. We have one of these already built into the project, which is this one right here. But that one's not nearly as much fun as this one. So let me show you what I mean. Let's go ahead and grab one of these in here. I'm going to go ahead and lift it up off of the surface by using our move tool. I'll pick it up. And if we hit play, it disappears. Why did it disappear? This is another one of those things that happens in the engine. The reason it disappeared is because this level is still currently active. So when I went ahead and dragged it from the content drawer into the world, this level is where this one lives. So what we need to do is fix that problem. This is actually really easy to do. I'm going to go ahead and select it and just press delete on the keyboard. Now what we need to do is we need to make our persistent level the one that's actually live. Okay, so these are little things that will happen when you're working with this. And now you know why it's actually happening. So to make this live, I can just right click on this and I'm going to say make current, right? It's a different kind of food, but in this case, I just use the word live, right? So let's go ahead and do that. So now that that's actually live, let's go ahead and drag that one in there again. So that one here, I'll lift it straight up and I'll hit play. And it doesn't do anything. We're like, well, that's lame. Way to go. And the reason it didn't do anything, and we do talk about this inside of the actual lesson plan, so don't feel like you're missing out on anything, is because this doesn't know how hard it needs to hit the ground before it shatters. You're working inside of a physics engine. We got to hit it with some newtons. So with this one selected, I'm going to go over here inside of my details panel on the right-hand side. So this one right here. And specifically, I want to go down to this part right here, where it says geometry collection component. This is kind of the inside guts, right? Now with this one selected inside of our search right here, I'm going to go ahead and type in the word threshold. THRE will actually get you pretty close. And this first index, I'll go ahead and zoom in on this to make it a little easier to see. This first index 0 right here, you'll notice there's a ginormous number in here. We can go ahead and just make it real simple and type in a 1. That's all we need to do. Let's go ahead and zoom back out. So now if we go ahead and play this, ta-da, it splits it in half. Now you may be thinking, well, that's no different from the wedge thing. And you're kind of right, just because it's splitting in half. But within the lesson plan, what y'all get to build is something like this one right here. Now they look pretty much exactly the same, except one has a longer name to it. This is the one that you create. And let me go ahead and drag this out. I'm going to lift this up. Oh, if you do get this warning, by the way, actors placed outside the bounds of the current level, just go ahead and hit OK. You haven't broken anything. That's fine. I'm going to go ahead and lift this one up right next to it. And we need to do the same thing that we had done with this one. We need to deal with its threshold. So with it selected, you'll notice that this has been saved over here, right? So I can just go into this threshold where it says 5 million. That doesn't say that. We'll go ahead and say 1 in that one. So it's nice and simple. It's just one. Now let's get nice and close to this, right? And I'm going to do this in slow-mo just so you can see what's going to happen. So you don't miss it.
Ooh, slow-mo.
So satisfying every time, right?
It's so beautiful.
Right.
Nice.
So what does this look like at normal speed? It basically just looks like that, right? So these are really fun
Amazing.
because every one of these little pieces then becomes something that you can work with inside of your Rube Goldberg machine. What?
Yes.
Saying it could be a thing.
All right, so I'm going to recap on this one. Lesson 3, wedges. Simple machine, wedge. An example of a simple machine that's a wedge, don't shout it out loud because it could get you in trouble. Like a knife or an axe or something like that, right? Like that simple machine has a specific function, a specific capability. We're showing you how to implement that in this Unreal Engine Rube Goldberg kit. And the exercise, just like Ian walked through, shows you basically how to get things moving, get it working, figure it out, add more things, make more cool things happen. And then you get a little bonus on how to make basically anything shatter to pieces. And you can add that into your Rube Goldberg machine as a reward. And that's lesson 3. And now we go on to lesson 4, talking about the wheel and axle. And this would be a great time. I think you could shout these out if you know a wheel and axle example. Something that would be a simple machine. We do have great resources, slideshows that for each of the simple machines that explain kind of like the physics principles behind them. So you're welcome to download those and use those with your students or for yourself if you want to learn more about how simple these simple machines work. But Ian,
all right, so let's do
show us lesson 4.
Wheel and axle number 4. So again, PDF for this. So if you need to print these off and have them sitting on your desk, so when your administrators walk by and like, what are you working on in class today? You're like, awesome. It's just that simple, right? Okay, so just like the other one, we need to go ahead and load in the information that we need, and we can do that over here inside of our levels, right? So inside of here, we'll go into our wheel and axle. Go ahead and right click on it, come down to change streaming method, and we want to go ahead and use always loaded. Again, we're going to get that error because we didn't actually toggle the visibility on first. That's fine. We'll just say okay, like so. So let's take a quick look at this. I'm going to hit 4 on the keyboard. What we have to begin with are 2 trucks. Okay, so let's take a look at these trucks. I'm going to select one of them and just press the F key on the keyboard. And if I get them both on screen here, you will notice that one of them, this one over here, is missing its wheels and its axles, where the one on the left actually has its wheels and its axles. And the wheel and axle is not something that we're trying to reinvent here. We're just going to go ahead and use it in a revolutionary kind of way. We want to go ahead and use it to actually make this little truck move. Now, we'll talk about all these crazy little widgets in a moment, but just as an example, if I go ahead and get my camera right about here, and I go ahead and press the play button, it's probably pretty obvious that the one on the right just probably isn't going to go very far, right? And the one on the left is trying to escape screen left. All right. Oh, he came back. There we go. Right. So we can use this to our advantage in a lot of ways. We can actually get this to go from one place to another. We could actually load this up to make other things go from one place to another. Just the wheel and axle is fantastic. Now, when you select this one, I'm going to go ahead and zoom in on it, get a little bit closer to it. So I'm going to hold down Alt this time and right mouse click and drag, and I'm going to leave my cursor somewhere over here. Again, I don't want to click on the actual little gizmos that are right there. So Alt and right mouse click, and I can kind of zoom in after I've framed it. It makes it real easy to see. Now, all these little gizmos on here are basically talking or are a way that we created this blueprint, this truck, and we don't need to actually see them. So if you press the G key, you'll go into what's called game mode, and all those widgets will disappear, and you can still select it and you'll get this little widget. Now, just like with everything else that we had, you know, we can move objects around. Every lesson that we have, we always talk about moving the object first, right? And within this one, we actually kind of up the ante, and I want to show you what I'm talking about. So I'm going to zoom out just a little bit, and I want to take this truck, right? I want to take this truck and I want to move it up. But you'll notice that the gizmo is aligned with basically the ground. It's not aligned with the truck. So I'd have to move it once, and then I'd have to move it again, and then I'd have to move it over. And I'm like, oh, I could save a lot of time. And especially as a designer, or maybe I've got somebody sitting over my shoulder, like, we need to get this done like yesterday. You're like, oh, okay, hold on a second. I want to move this parallel with the surface of this cheese wedge. And this is actually an inclined plane. Whew, get myself in trouble calling that the wrong thing. So if I select this, up here at the top of the interface, there's this little button up here, and it looks like a globe, right? It's right there. I'll go ahead and zoom in on it so you can see it. And if we hover over it, it says it cycles the gizmo coordinate system between world and Lu. And that actually says local. There we go. And local object space. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to click on this button, but I got to zoom out and watch that gizmo and watch what it does. You'll notice that it now is aligned with the truck. So global, local, global, local, right? So this makes it real easy to just go ahead and click and drag on this, and now I can push it up. And you may be asking, well, okay, this is going to go farther. Why do we want to go farther? Well, I'm going to press the 4 key on the keyboard, and we have a target over here. So now when we hit the play button, truck will roll down, and when it bonks into it, hey, that Lazy Susan starts to spin. And the Lazy Susan is another wheel and axle. It's just on its side, right? So let's talk about this Lazy Susan and this truck here just for a moment, and then we'll walk through the challenge. So the truck, like many of the blueprints, these specific actors that we have in the world that we're working with, let me show you where these are at really quick. You can actually get at a lot of them underneath our collections section right here. So we have things like our other wheel and axles, right? We have an inclined plane. So these are all of the simple machines that are here inside of the project. They're real easy to get at under the collections under our simple machines.
I'm going back on.
Gotcha.
So what we're going to do is we're going to talk about some of the superpowers that these things have. So I'm going to go ahead and zoom in on it. And I'm going to make sure that I clear my search over here, right? Because if we look in here, and I'm also going to make sure that I'm using the all or the general filter at the top of this. So when those are selected, you'll notice that we have a little section down here that says default. And I'll go ahead and zoom in on this so you can see that, hey, we have a parking brake, and we have this really interesting debug type. I wonder what these do. Well, these are added little pieces that allow you to create your Rube Goldberg machines in much more efficient ways. So to make sure that you can kind of see what they are, let's see if I can get a little bit more space on screen. So if I hover over the word parking brake, it says when the parking brake is on, the object will not move until it is bumped into. Well, that's interesting. So if you set this truck on an inclined plane and you don't want it to move until you've filled the back of it up, you can set the parking brake. Well, that's kind of cool, right? Oh, well, thank you, Unreal. You're going to go ahead and save for me. That's also a good thing. The other thing that we have is this draw debug type. So if we set, well, come on now. If we set it for duration, we can see where this thing is going to go. And this is literally just a drop down. And if we set it to right here, it says for duration. So let's see what these actually do in context. So let's go ahead and set the parking brake. If I hit play, it doesn't move at all. It's like stuck in the world. And it doesn't
Hover brake. Well, that's a powerful parking brake right there.
It can defy Newton, right? So that's kind of interesting, right? Like that's cool. And it's not going to move until we bump something into it, which we're not going to do in this case, but I definitely wanted to show you where it was. All right. Now the other thing, if we set this for duration, right? And you'll notice nothing really pops up yet. So I'm going to hit the G key. Nope, it's still not going to pop up. So I'm going to hit play. And what this is going to do, now we get a little laser pointer on the front of that thing, which is kind of cool, right? So now we can actually see where that truck is going to be going for the most part, right? Whenever the simulation is actually running. That's kind of cool.
Easy
so if you're
for debugging, right? Like deciding where to line your stuff up.
Yep, absolutely. Absolutely. So if we were to look at this kind of from above, we hit the play button. I'm going to hit tab because slow motion, right? Now I can kind of get down in front of this thing. All right, well, okay. So when this thing actually gets off of that wedge, where is that thing actually looking, right? So you can actually kind of see where that's going to be. You get a whole lot of time to kind of figure out what's going to happen, which is awesome. Right. So the other ones, don't worry about one frame or persistent. Play with them at your own risk. It's not going to break anything, but they're not going to do a whole lot for you. Although, no, yeah, see, it's not going to do anything. They're just not doing anything. So we're going to leave that at none. So this is some of the cool things that are actually built inside of this one. Now, I'm going to go off script for just a moment. I know, Brian, you love it when I do this. But if we go in here and we look inside of our
Permitted.
blueprints, it'll be quick, I promise you. Right?
Tangent request accepted.
Right? You will find, so I've gone underneath our content, our blueprints, and into our toys. Hey, there's that truck. That is that truck right there. There's another version of this, and it's a skateboard. Ooh. So this
I do
skateboard
love
has
the
the same
skateboard.
superpowers. So if we drag our skateboard in here, right, you will notice that underneath our default over here, we have a parking brake. We have our debug type, right? So there are multiple ways to get objects from one place to another. Skateboards, trucks, however you feel. Okay, back on script. All right, so the other thing that we can talk about is this Lazy Susan. Now, this Lazy Susan's got some pretty cool superpowers of its own. And just like the other one, if we look here inside of our default, I'm going to go and smash these so you can see them a little easier. We have a cake size.
I have to interrupt you. Because I have to challenge anybody who's watching this to, share a tweet of what is on the bottom of that skateboard. Don't show them, Ian. Like, I want them to see what's the design on the bottom of the skateboard. Tweet that to us. Let us know you're watching this video and you found it.
Oh, you know what? I'm gonna up the ante. So yes, and because I love the yes and game.
Okay.
Yes, and if you can find it hidden within the world, we did hide it.
Oh,
There's one hidden somewhere in this world.
Ooh.
There it is.
Yeah.
All right. So our cake size. Back to the script. We'll go back to the cake size. You'll notice that the widget actually says cake size on it, right? So what's cool is if I grab this, and here's a little pro tip as well. These little widgets work 100% better if you're actually set to local space. This is another reason I want to bring this little thing up, because it makes it a whole lot easier to use them. If it's on global space, you'll get some very interesting results. It's not going to break it. It just makes it rather entertaining. So I didn't tell you to set it to global space on the computer that's next to you and watch your friends suffer. Anyways, so now that we have this, I'm going to go ahead and hover over cake size here. Let's go ahead and zoom in on it. And you will notice that the cake size, the X, let's do this. So the cake size, so we have X, so we'll call this one X, right? We'll call this one Y, and we'll call this one Z. So the cake percent, how full is it going to be? The cake diameter, okay, and the cake height. And it probably should be radius, but you'll see what I mean if I say radius or diameter in this. It could be either one. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go and zoom out. And then while I have this one selected, so X is the red axis. For those of you that are colorblind, the red one is X. So if I click and drag on it, oh, look at that. All of a sudden, we have a full cheesecake. See what we did there?
Yeah, I see what you did there. Boy, that's a cholesterol bomb right there.
Right? So you can move this back and forth to get a different cake size. Now, pro tip, you can actually click and drag on these fields as well. For some of them, not all of them. And you can actually do the same thing. You can also click in there and type in a value and actually get that to work as well. So when you're doing really precise work and you need to make sure that you're trying to get something deterministic, because we're in the chaos engine, it's probably not going to happen, but you'll get close, right? You can actually work with specific numbers, right? So take notes as you're working with it, right? So that's X. Now, if we do Y, this is why I called it diameter, because it could be radius if we did something like this, right? Is that really radius at this point? Kind of, right? But it's diameter if you do it here, right? So you can actually change how big this is as well. Now, the other thing that we can do is go up and down, so we can make this a really tall cheesecake as well, or very short. Maybe it's a pancake of some sort. I don't know, pancake cheese.
I make really good cheese pancakes. Just saying.
Sounds amazing.
I mean, I'm down to try them. I'm not gonna lie. Now, the other piece.
Crunchy.
They're delicious. Ask my kids. I'll give you the recipe. We'll put it in the next chat.
Sweet. Okay, now the other thing that we want to try and do, let's make that a little bit bigger. Now, the other thing that we can work with on this, we have another one over here called this Lazy Susan rotation rate. So this one, I'll go ahead and zoom in on it. So if I hover over this, it says, hey, sets the speed at which the Lazy Susan spins. When set at 0, it will not spin. Positive numbers will give you counterclockwise, and negative numbers will give you clockwise. Right. So if we select this, I'm going to press F. So I'm zooming in on it and I'm going to go look at it from above. Right. So when that truck comes down here and rolls into this, it's at a negative number. Oh, my camera flipped. Right. So you can see that it's going clockwise from up above is the way that we've got this set up. Right. So if I set this to positive, it's going to go counterclockwise. Wait for it. Come on, truck. Boop. It goes that way. So understanding how this works will enable you to create something quite a bit more efficiently. So we have one
I
other
have an
little
observation though before you go any further. The
Oh,
ball went the same direction regardless of which way it spun. That was interesting to me.
that
It
way.
shoots out to that side and then do it the other way.
Oh, interesting. But what happens?
Pretty close.
What if we do that?
Who knows?
Oh, interesting.
Hey,
Let's go the other way. Right. So it went over here to the right. See, it goes where my cursor is. Yeah, interesting. So that's actually really good
experimentation
thing.
there.
Now I'm playing with it. All right. So the other thing that we have is this one right here. It says spin on begin play. I'm going to zoom in on that one. Toggles if the Lazy Susan should spin at game start. And that game start is that play button that we've been pressing, right? So if I turn this on and now I hit play, we won't need, and I'll make sure this is really obvious, that truck to hit it. It just starts like it's a thing. So the reason that this might be useful is because you want something to be kind of a gate, right? Or you want it to smack something as soon as it comes in, right? You don't necessarily want to wait for something to actually activate it. And what's happening, the reason this is actually activating, right, is that if you look under here, I'm going to do a little cheat here real quick. I'm going to come up here to where it says show. Oh, I lied. Up here where it says lit, and then go ahead and turn on player collision. And you can see there's this purple box. So this little box thing right here, this is a collision volume. And when something bumps into it, this is what is actually turning this Lazy Susan on. It's toggling it on and off, or rather it's just toggling it on. Not gonna lie. It's going to toggle it on as soon as something bumps into it, right? So that's something to be aware of. There are buttons on the bottom of this, and we've given them kind of a couple of, these are buttons, right? They're buttons. They look like buttons, right? But you don't have to hit those buttons if you're actually using this spin on begin play. So keep that in mind. So with all of that talked about, let's actually look at what we need to do to make this work. Now, the challenge for this one is to get this ball to actually drop down into A, right? And the challenge for you walking through this is to figure out how you need to set up this cheese to get that to actually happen. Now, I'm not going to move the ball and I'm not going to move the Lazy Susan. The only thing that we're moving is this truck up here. So it's a little further up the wedge. Sorry, inclined plane. I'm going to keep saying that. I'm going to get myself in trouble. And then you can actually fiddle with the x-axis to figure out how big or small you need this to be. Now, I know the answer, so I'm not going to say what it is because I want you to play with it. Now, extending upon that, we ask you to go just one step further. Remember that yes and that we're always talking about? And it is to take this ball and this Lazy Susan and duplicate it and move it, if you should choose, and use it. So we'll have two balls and two Lazy Susans. Well, that was a really weird way to say that. Duplicate these so you've got a set of two. Now, I've kind of cheated, and I've actually got another one set up right here ready to go. So, I've already cooked the cheesecake. It's outside of the actual oven, and it's ready to do what we need to do.
Julia Child.
Doing the thing. So I'm going to set this up, and what I want to do is go ahead and just hit play. Oh, is this one on? We don't want that one to spin on begin, right? So our first challenge is to get the one to actually go into A. Now, the other challenge is to get this one to go into B, right? So we're going to create a chain reaction. So this is where we start to think about this whole Rube Goldberg idea. I need to get this ball right here into this bucket. Now, I could very easily just, I win. But that's way too easy. That's way
rules, man, rules.
Right? So let's see if this will work. Now, and this will probably also illustrate the fact that this chaos system may make this work on the first time and may not work ever. Right? Oh, see, it's going that way. Oh, I know why. We need this. Oh, well, hi. There we go. Let's change that up. We need this to be a negative 360.
My fault.
Right? Oh, and it missed it. Okay, so we got to make sure that it's going to do the thing. Now, I haven't changed anything, right? And we'll see if this works while I'm streaming. Do that. There it goes.
Whoa. And look at that confetti.
All the confetti. Yeah, the confetti is there by
That's
default.
the engine activity of lesson number 1.
That
Right?
is very
You want to learn how to
satisfying.
make.
And missed it.
Of course, you had to play it again, didn't you? It was perfect. You just had to.
Oh, and then it
Oh,
bounces off the other side, right? So
That's
when
really
you're
cool,
working
though.
with this, let it kind of play out, 3, 4, 5 times before you like, oh, it doesn't work, right? Like it's not you, it's the machine, it's literally the controller. Yeah, see, now we're gonna do it again. This is the fabulous part of like actual streaming.
And this is such a natural part of a Rube Goldberg machine anyway. Like I love the videos that we've seen where there's one, we'll have to show that one time, Jennifer, where the kid's counting how many times he has to try the
All
Rube
the
Goldberg
failures.
machine. Yeah, all the failures.
Yeah.
Just amazing.
He predicted that he was going to have like 29 failures and 2 successes.
That kid was
And
the best.
he actually beat his hypothesis. So that was
Oh,
pretty
okay.
cool.
But it took a while. It was great to watch. I mean, just so fun. I mean, it embodied everything about this.
Amazing.
Oh,
Never fails.
But
It's
all about
wonderful.
trial and error. Just
Yeah.
little
It really is.
tiny tweaks.
Absolutely.
so this is great. I hope everybody's ready to rock this lesson 3 and 4 with their students. Let it be known too that we're very available. If you have any questions or anything, we have a Discord server. I'll drop that in the chat as well, where you can get support also. But this is good stuff, and we can't wait to see, and keep hearing what people are doing with this project, and and kind of catching your, as you share it out on social. It's been so much fun already to see what people are doing.
Nope.
Absolutely. Awesome.
If you do it
Hey,
in
thanks.
slow motion, does it help you kind of tweak? Like, will it repeat? Do you know what I'm saying?
Yes. So that's actually a really good question. So the slow motion does give it more time to calculate the physical interactions, but it's no guarantee it's going to work better.
It's like real life.
You have more time. You can fill out the calculation sheet. Cool.
So
Well, this
fun.
was very, very informative for me.
Yes.
Mhm.
Oh,
Except
well,
for that,
good.
that
Well,
window where I had to leave you guys.
That's
So,
true.
You'll have to watch the replay now.
yeah, you gotta
The
get
part you missed.
you don't want to miss it.
Which, as a matter of fact, will be posted, I'm sure, by tomorrow.
Yes.
Exactly. You'll find it on the rubegoldberg.org website. There's also a Clever Lake playlist, and don't forget the Clever Lake Creator School is also an option for you to join if you want to get access to additional learning elements as well. So, anybody, so first of all, thank you all. Jennifer, thank you so much for your
Oh,
continuing this wonderful tradition of your brilliant and creative, and
Oh.
obviously super fun grandfather. And thanks for letting us be part of that and letting
My
the world
pleasure.
participate in this competition. So
I get to hang out with the trifecta of digital genius. So I'm very excited, and we'll see you guys here next week. Same bad
Yes.
time, same bad channel.
That's right.
yeah. Yeah.
Thanks, Ian.
All right.
That was awesome.
Yeah,
Thank you,
absolutely, y'all.
Ian. Thank you, Brian. Thank you, Stephen. Mwah.
Bye.
Okay.
Mwah.
Bye, everybody. Bye.